Thank you very much for being here. My name is Maurizio Garzelli. I used to work for Layer 7 and then moved to CA and now working for APIIDA. We are still working for the product of CA technologies, in particular the API management suite. First of all, I would like to start with an icebreaker. Here we are going to talk about the management and security of contextual communication, something that is related to user experience. So many people have asked me, what is contextual communication? What does it mean? And what we don't realize is that we use it every day outside the technological sphere. And a lot of jokes are actually based on contextual miscommunication. So this is one of the jokes that kind of make people frown. So I'm a mathematician, so bear with me. The question is, why would mathematicians get confused between Christmas and Halloween? And this is the answer. So many people would look at it and they go, you have to write it down, you ask, then nobody knows, you write it down like this, and people just look at it. Some people might get it, some other people don't. And of course, the joke is in the actual explanation. So, what do we know? Well, Christmas is the 25th of December. Why? Because the context here is dates, right? I said Christmas and Halloween. So, let's change the dates. These are the dates. So, why would that make sense? Yes, it doesn't make sense. So, the next context here is the fact that it's about mathematicians. So, the dates, you can change them and you can write them in this format. Again, it doesn't make sense. But then you have to think, mathematicians. So, there is an extra context here. It's mathematics. So how would a mathematical context come into play here? Well, look at dec and oct. Dec and oct could be decimal and octal. And actually, that is true. There you go. 25 is equal to 25. So if you want your friends to groan, then this is a wonderful joke to show them. And at the end, you either make friends or you make enemies. So this is about contextual communication, and that also applies to IT. So there is nothing worse when you go and call an API to do something. Then they say, you have to call API 2. Then you go to API 2, and you have to explain again everything that you have asked on API 1 plus extra stuff in order to go through with the next. With the next query. So this idea of contextual communication came through, saying, okay, let's give it more flair to APIs. Let's look a bit further. It's for the user experience at the end of the day. So how can we do it? So this idea of contextual communication came through. There are quite a few videos, and there are quite a few resources online. Not that many, but still, you can actually find more and more stuff. And nowadays, it's getting more and more. As a matter of fact, there are quite a few approaches. There are two main approaches out there. One is many apps, one channel. So an example is banking and payment. So if you consider you have apps that need to make a payment, you would have an app that makes a payment. You are on Amazon, and the Amazon app, and you are making a payment. You would still be on your Amazon app while you are buying something. But then the channels are different. One is Amazon, the other one is the sender, the other one is the bank. So you have many apps, one channel. Another example is Google. Google is you have the payment was like many apps, one channel, sorry. Google is a prime example of many apps, one channel. You have apps for Google Maps, apps for Google itself, apps for, Google has many apps. All those apps, they use one channel, which is good, one major channel, one major motorway which is Google itself. And as a matter of fact, sometimes you will find, if you book a flight and you get the itinerary on your Gmail, and then you go on Google Maps, you go and see the airport you are going to fly off of, to see where it is, because you have to book a taxi and you want to know, you will notice that there is a little date telling you when you are going to leave. Why? Because it has taken it from your email. Not only that, you go on Google itself and you look for the word itinerary, and you will find that the first answer to your query will be your itinerary. So your booking, the time of your flight, what's your flight number. It is something that is out there already. But of course, many people would start talking about, how is that possible? Oh my God, Google knows everything about me. Oh, well, yeah, of course. You put everything in Google, so it goes without saying. The other one is many channels, one app, which was my first example, which went wrong. But it includes also target advertising. So target advertising is what it does. So you have one app, but it uses many channels to actually target the advertisement to your needs. And that's why you go on Facebook and you find advertisement about things that you have looked at somewhere that it knows your interest. And so the app of advertisement uses the channels of Facebook, the channels of Google, and that has been always like the age-old thing, right? That they say Google is not the product or Facebook is not the product is you. Who is using, the people who are using Facebook are the products. So the last example is booking apps. You go on a booking app and you find out that you have to go on to many channels in order to get the booking done. So it's the same, many apps, one channel. One is many apps, one channel, many channels, one app. So you have this kind of, the booking apps, you get channels from everywhere, from the banking and from the booking area, so that at the end, your app, you can just book your stuff. So, that's it. But this brings up a lot of vulnerabilities and risks. So first of all, you have to realize, is the information requested within that context harmless? So the information you request, that's why they always ask you for the cookies. Do you allow cookies? Or you are on an app, they say, oh, do you allow me to use to check your messages or to check third-party information? Because it could be harmful, and not directly. There was this wonderful strip I wanted to use, and I cannot find it anymore, which was these two people. They are talking, and they are talking in a bar, and it's like, oh, geez, I really love this beer, but I love to stay here in the pub. I so miss my dog. Really, it's your favorite dog? Yeah. He's called Fluffy and blah blah blah. Oh, really? Wow. But it doesn't take long to go home, right? No, because, I'm actually from Iowa or something, because it's an American strip. I'm actually from, oh, really? Which town? Oh, yeah, I was next door to it and so on. So this kind of communication of every day and so on. And the next little thing is the person on the banking website saying, my name is such and such, my mother's maiden's name, and the person is using the information they gathered through another context for the context of banking, online banking. So it looked harmless then, and then it becomes harmful. So you have to check if the information from one context can be used on another context harmfully. And if that is the case, can it actually get to the point where it becomes a case of identity theft? And if you are going to store that information, are you going to store it according to the standards, to the security standards? And are all those standards actually good enough for that storage? And for how long? Are you going to keep it indefinitely? Are you going to remember, 7, 8 years ago, you've done this? why? Why do you remember 7 years ago I've done this? And then there is the simple user paranoia. I don't know how many people here have experienced, their parents going, oh my God, I hate this. I would throw away my mobile phone. It knows where I am. It knows what I like, and so on. This is something that is very common. This is why. This is where you have, when you manage your context within your communication, you have to realize the scope that you can ask. So, APIs. APIs, they have been around forever. And by their nature, they are quite stateless, APIs is, I ask you a question, you answer me, the end. That is what you would experience normally. That's the simplest case scenario, Direct input, the API. You call, I want a JSON of all the cars you have. Bam, you get it. You don't care about anything else. You don't care where you are, how you are. That's it. But with the coming of the browser, you start having things like headers. They come into play. So the headers that come into play have information that already a lot of APIs use. And these start to be this invisible extra information that creates the context, right? And this is the first one, the first case of contextualization of that call. So that direct input is not anymore the sole information gathering that there is. There is the headers, something that you as an end user don't know, but they are there. And headers, I mean also cookies, because they're in the headers. So, and that is quite useful. The first usefulness is the damn username and password. Oh, come on, every time you call a website where you need to put, can you imagine if you have to all the time, every time, even when an image or the CSS loads up, what's your username and password? What's your username and password? It's like, come on. So there must be a way of remembering it, and that's the cookie. And through the cookie, finally, I put it once, the end. But then there are other ones that, without your knowledge, could be gathered. One is chronological data. Chronological data, I don't speak only about the date, of the time, but also something that might have happened, or something you might have checked previously, and chronologically, and probably could be also that, something that evolves with time. So you're changing something, and it records the change that happens. So you could include that chronological data. Geographical data, it's very common, when you look for something. In Google Maps, you can say just hotels near me. That's it. I mean, if you take it out of context and it's a completely decontextualized thing, it's like hotels near me. Where's the town called me? What are you talking about? So, but Google knows the near me means near my person. My person is somewhere, and that somewhere is coming from maybe the GPS coordinates that are on the phone, and bam, geographical data. So all these things are coming through. Environmental data, the weather, whatever, and these can be taken from external information, like API calls themselves to other external entities. And then there are the sensitive one, like external data. Now, these external data are more like external data within other contexts, like what I was saying before. And this could be because, you are on Facebook and you have an app, an advertisement. That advertisement, in order to be aimed at you, will actually go and fetch information from somewhere, from Facebook, for example, or from your historics of Amazon, from certain information that are available on your computer or on your mobile phone that normally you wouldn't give access to, but because you just go, oh, do you allow cookies? Yeah, and then suddenly all that information is actually public to whoever needs it. And then last but not least, personal data. bank cards, bank card details. I mean, how many of you use Google to remember, Chrome to remember your bank card? So you don't have to go all the time, fetch your card, look at the 16-digit number, punch them in, then another 3 numbers, and then another 4 numbers for the, hey, remember it, fine. And then at most, when the security is wrong, they will ask you for the CVC. And then it will just auto-populate. Well, that data is there on your browser. And it's accessible to people, to apps and APIs. So you have to be very careful at what the data that you require. And when you create an API, you have to be careful as to what is the scope. Because this, user experience is paramount. That's how you actually win the audience. And this is very important. But what happens if you don't tailor for it? You are going to either use users, you're going to lose users, or you're going to lose audience. And you can lose money. These are some of the pain stories. Because, what happens if your data, you have a lot of context data, and they have been hacking away, and they got in. You find yourself that you are going to, you can go to jail. Your company can get huge amount of issues. So you have to be careful. Look at that. Google Plus has been closed down because Google did find that it could have been a huge security breach. So, and Facebook, huge security breach. And what about this guy? One of the co-founders of Google who actually said years ago, this is an old article already, like quite a few years ago, who said, well, by the time they're 21, a lot of people will have to, who are now teenagers, will have to change their credentials because too much information is out there. Why? Because in this contextualized work, you kind of lose this. You kind of have your information everywhere. And because people who create APIs and apps don't manage it well, it's still out there, it's still in the wrong places. So you have to manage the vulnerabilities. And these are some of the examples that you can, you can use. These are some of the things that you can use in order to make sure that you have a proper management. So you make sure that the data is secured according to GDPR rules and this and that. Ask the user for proper security questions, again, related to GDPR. Make sure that the user knows that the data is treated with the utmost respect and privacy. Not many people use that. And it's kind of, and be clear about it. Don't put like, oh, here is like a huge paragraph in super small prints that nobody can read unless you zoom in. And then be sensible and sensitive. Understand what the data you're asking means to the user. Finally, if you really cannot, you are worried and so on, use market leader expertise, both for consultancy and product. I mean, there are products that help you to manage this data. Well, make sure that you make your research online to see if you can find a proper one. I wanted to share a couple of success stories quickly. So there is a utility company in the UK that wants to give their users the best experience. So, the idea is the engineer comes to your house, or better, the user calls the helpline calls the engineer goes to the house of the user, and thanks to the tablet where the data of the problem has been stored, they go to the customer and they deal with it. Now, the thing, here, there doesn't seem to be any contextualization at all. Yeah, I have a problem with my body. Bam, bam, bam. He comes or she comes and repairs it. But what they decided to do is for user experience, they would actually store information. So when the engineer goes on site, for example, there is a vicious dog, you know, so they will put it in the records. Or there is a lady who has a, what you call, like disabilities. Again, it will be written, but that is information that creates context. So the person who goes there knows how to treat and gets the best of the customer care. And yeah, that information needs to be very well stored. And that's why the API gateway in this case is being used, where it adds a huge amount of controls because the tablet tells you everything. So what happens if the tablet is stolen, the app is being installed somewhere else, or someone who is not allowed uses it. So you know, you have to worry about these things. And last but not least is the bus cloud. APIIDA has come up with this idea of using the APIs to manage buses building automation system. So, you know, when you are in a building and the blinds go up automatically and this and that. So the bus cloud is also an example where contextualization can be used in order to understand what is happening around, what are the chronological things. So, you know, 2 weeks ago, it happens. So, you know, this happened, and we will do it again, things like that. Here it is. Thank you very much for your time. I hope it was interesting.